going to try to get you to understand zero and negative exponents. So by the end of this, hopefully you should be able to simplify some exponents. Obviously, they're going to have the zero exponent and the negative exponent, and I will try to talk about some of the easy, simple mistakes that you might make. So a real quick rehash. The base, that's your number that's going to be multiplied several times, and this is the exponent. So what I was going to do is I was going to do a real quick review on this of like 5, the first power, second power, and third power, and of course we're going to go into the negatives. So I'm going to start with the most obvious, and I'm going to start off with 5. 5 to the first power is just 1 5. 5 squared, as you know, would then be 2 5s, which we know is an answer of 25. 5 to the third power means that you're going to have that base 3 times. So that's 5 times 5, which is 25, times another 5, which would make 125. So that's pretty obvious to us, but let's start going backwards right here. How do I get 5 to the 0? Common mistake is we're going to write the answer as maybe 0. But if you start to look at a pattern here, you're going to notice that you're dividing by 5. From 125 down to 25 is you're dividing by 5. So notice how we're taking off a 5 here. So if I go to the 5 the first, I divide that by 5. It's not 0, but it's 1. So what is the answer to 5 to the 0 power? 1. And you're going to find out is any number to the 0 power is basically just 1. So how do I get these other ones? 5 to negative 1. Well, my brain wants to say that, hey, it's going to be a negative, but it's not. Notice that your base is positive, so all 3 of these answers are going to be positive numbers. But what you're going to realize is that they're going to be fractions. So how do I get that? Well, I'm at right here at 1, and I want to divide by 5 to get to 5 to negative 1. So what is that? It's basically 5 right here, and you're going to have a 1 on top of it because it's 1 divided by 5. If you notice, remember 5 to the first power is just 5. So what's 5 to the negative second? Well, you're going to have dividing this by 5 again, which is going to translate to, again, 1 over 25. So you see a pattern right here, and I probably should have duplicated this, is that you have a 25 here, but when it's a negative, you just have 1 over 25. So to make it positive, put down a denominator. 5 to the negative third. Okay, I'm dividing by 5. Probably not going to be thinking about that every single time, so I just have to think of, let me get this to be a positive exponent. How do I do that? Put it downstairs in the denominator. 5 to the third power, we already established, was 125. So what's my answer going to be? 1 over 125. So I'm hoping that you start to recognize a pattern right here. Is you should be familiar with the basic exponents, but when you get to a negative exponent, make it positive by dropping it to the denominator, and then just evaluate that exponent or simplify whatever words you want to use. I always think of 5 to the third power is 125, so I just have to remember to put that in the denominator. So you should hopefully notice a pattern right there, and this also might help you when we start doing powers of 10. Because with powers of 10, you're going to realize that 10 to the first power is just 10, right? 10 to the second is 10 times 10. 10 to the third is 10 times 10 times 10. So if I go with the easiest one right here, 10 to the first power is just 10. 10 to the second, well, 10 times 10 is what, 100. 10 to the third is 100 times 10, so I'm just going to add another 0. So notice 10 to the third power has 3 zeros. Now this is going to be different than the other one, so don't think that you can do like 1 over 555 or something like that, 5 negative third. Go down, start dividing by 10, and you're going to get 10 to the first power is 10, but 10 to the 0 power is 10 divided by 10, which is 1. Okay, how do I get the rest of these answers? All I got to do is if I want to have 10 to the negative first, is I'm going to want to have the 10 to the first on the bottom. So it's going to be basically 1 on top of 10. So I get my fraction in there. Notice another negative exponent. Well, I got to drop that 10 to the negative 2 to the bottom and make it positive. What's 10 squared? We already established that was 100. And then I just got to put a 1 on top. How about 10 to the negative third? Hey, drop it to the bottom. That's going to be 1 over 10 to the negative third. What is negative third? 10 to the negative third? It's 1,000. So I just put 1 on top as my numerator, and my denominator is 1,000. So I'd like to try to do a couple practice examples with you. If you think about this one, 9 to the negative second. Okay, is it going to be a positive or negative number? It's positive. Why? The base is positive. What do I basically have? I have 1 over 9 squared. So I'm always going to have a fraction. What's my answer going to be then? Hey, my answer is going to be 1 with 9 times 9 is, I think, 81. So I got 81 on the bottom. And there's my answer. That's simplified. Made it a positive exponent, and then I just went 9 times 9 is 81. Same with this one. Negative or positive? Right away, positive. So I'm thinking about it as the 4 to the third power is on the bottom. That's how I make it positive. Then from there, I just have to evaluate that. And I'm going to get 4 to the third power. And I got to think about that for a second. I want to say 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is 64. So my answer is 1 over 64. Take a second. Try to do this one right here. 7 to the negative second. If you have to, pause it and look at these answers. The way I do it is I start thinking in my brain is I'm going to make that a positive exponent by dropping it down. Then I'm going to evaluate it. 7 squared is, I think, 49. I know some people are going to want to say 14 because they're just thinking of, 7 times 2. But I'm going to get 1 over 49. All right, the next one I'm going to do is going to have a negative base, and that's where you can make some simple mistakes with it. If I look at this one, I'm negative 4 to the negative third power. If I see a negative exponent, I'm automatically going to think of it as a fraction. So if you look at these answers, we can definitely eliminate A. It's got to be B, C, or D. First thing that pops into my brain is that it's going to be 1 over negative 4 to the third power. Okay? I might make some simple mistakes. Hopefully I don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my base, negative 4, and I'm going to think about it as being on the bottom 3 times, because that's what the exponent's going to do to me. So I'm going to put 3 times on the bottom. I remember my numerator is going to be 1 on the top, so that's the easy part. And I'm already started thinking about this. The way I teach my students is there's 3 negatives right here, so it's going to have to be a negative. And then on the bottom, I just do it like I did before, and I'm going to decide if it's negative or positive right off the bat, and I already decided it's a negative. And I believe 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is 64, so the answer for B is correct. Last one's coming up. Hopefully you can pause and get the correct answer for this one, and then check to see what I did. This one right here, we got negative 2 to the negative fourth power. How do I make that negative exponent positive? I drop it to the denominator, and I put it underneath 1. From there, I'm going to remember that I have a 1 as my numerator, and then I'm going to take the negative 2 right here, and I'm going to have it, I believe, 4 times on the bottom. So if I do this a couple of times right here, I now have a negative 2 written 4 times at the bottom. Kind of want to avoid making some simple mistakes. So right away I'm going to decide if it's a positive or negative, because that's usually where, simple mistakes can occur. Negative and negative is positive. Another negative and negative is positive. There's an even number, so it's going to be a positive. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So the answer is 1 over 16. Hopefully this was helpful. Obviously, avoid making mistakes like going 2 times 4, always thinking it's a negative anytime you have a negative exponent, and good luck.